Hi, Steve.
Good morning.
Mark, good morning.
Oh, the motley crew.
Again.
Yeah.
Did you get my email yesterday about getting some KPIs entered so that we can?
I don't recall getting an email about KPIs from you. Maybe it got lost somewhere. No, I don't.
I sent it to, let me just see. First off, let's just make sure I got the right address here. Something market JPMC.
Oh, if you sent it to my work address, then
I wasn't sure which way to go.
oh,
I sent it to,
I see. No, I mean my Outlook.com address is probably better.
okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get that on the agenda kind of first thing. I have to skip out at the bottom of the hour.
Okay. Let's talk about it first then.
Cool. Let me just get the stuff up and I can quickly share my screen.
Mhm.
Maybe not quickly, but I'll share my screen. Here we go.
Hi, Victor. We have another
Morning.
joiner.
And as I recall, I added it to the little, there's a tac doc that you put together. I'm having a hard time seeing it. GRC SIG links, maybe? These slides. Oh, now I can't find it. Hang on. CSA note. Ah, it's in our charter. Wow, just like that, I can't find it. The other day I was working on it. It was in a slide deck.
Do you want to look for it while we go
Yeah.
take care of
Please,
something
sorry.
else right now? Okay. So what I was going to start today was there is a pattern that I put together. It's an AVS pattern. It's very short. And the thing I want to and perhaps make it even more explicit in the text of the document, I do not know, but certainly worth an explanation here, is that anytime you deal with a control in an organization, and that control has some sort of policy driving it, the policy is governed through what's called a system of record. So a system of record is effectively a data store, but that data store, it's a strongly governed one because you care about not just what's in it, but the history of what was in it, and that the access to it is properly governed, and that you can basically account to what policy was in effect at what time. So that makes sense. So what I want to share is this pattern, but it's best probably to think about it in the terms of like what I just said. So here you go, the document. Please confirm that you can see it. Hi, Sal.
Yep, it's there.
Okay, let me put the link to the document in the chat, so you can open it for yourselves. And yeah, please take a look, comment, and then let's come back in a few minutes and you know, I want to hear the initial set of thoughts. I would like to take this in front of Data Station SIG next after we're happy with it. I do not want to sign off on this particular pattern without them. But they met yesterday, so perhaps we can get ourselves on the schedule in 2 weeks' time.
Before we deep dive into that, let's just take a really quick minute, if it's okay, to
Yeah.
review these key results. It will only take a
Oh,
second.
you did find them. Okay, great.
I did find it. It's here. I don't know where this document is saved, but I'll find it here in a minute. And share here. All right. So to get over, can you guys see it? Okay. Not yet. There we go. Now can you see it?
Yeah,
Yes.
there it is.
All right, cool. So the TAC, Dan wants to be able to measure the progress of the special interest groups operating underneath the auspices of the TAC. And in order to manage our progress and report it to the governing board, he wants some key results that he can measure us against. I took a stab as the TAC member of coming up, and I guess I'm the sponsor of this this SIG. Seems like a conflict of interest, but I am. So I took a stab at writing these key results. Try to make it simple for us. I want to just fill in for the variables. N and key regulatory or standards body in the top one. So let's take a look. And Mark, as the chair, I propose that you throw out the first guess as to what a value for these variables are.
So what's the timeline that we're talking about?
End of the year.
End of the year, I'll put 3 there.
3 what? I'm gonna motion.
Because the thing is, given the rate at which we've been getting things in the past, I think it's a reasonable middle of the confidence interval type of thing.
Okay, I'll say 3. 3. He was going to settle for 1, so I just want to throw that out there.
Well, ultimately it's subject to there being things for us to respond to, but
Yeah.
I think that's a reason.
Well, subject to us finding things to respond to, that makes sense.
Well,
and,
yeah.
and are these the key regulatory or standards bodies? Can anybody think of one top of mind that I should add to this list?
Well, we're trying to get into NIST. We wrote the white paper for ICO. We did the SSRM for CSA and continuing with them. So I'm trying to figure out how that turns into 3.
Okay, so I've got CSA called out separate because it's not a government organization. It's not a national, regional, or government organization. I've put that as a separate key result for compliance organizations that are non-governmental. Don't know if that makes sense to do or not. Just seems like it's tidier and it gives us another key result.
Yeah.
So I hear you. I agree with everything you said, Steve. I was just calling out that the CSA work, I'm going to move it down here.
Well, I was just trying to count what's a written response, right? You know, in the when we were doing the controls and the compliance. So if I just take the third bullet, how do you count the fact that we got 20 mentions in their SSRM with a number of written responses back and forth to ultimately get to those?
Do you have a key result in mind, some wording maybe that might capture that more?
Well, so I'm just trying to figure out how to put it into this format, right? So what did we have? We've got about 20 controls in the SSRM.
Implementation guidelines, I'd say.
Yep.
But let's say, we'll say 15 CC-based controls or implementation. Or recommendations. That's two, because really we've only got one at this point. Hopefully we can stretch that out. We've talked about PCI DSS, but we haven't actually met with them, have we?
We
Not
haven't
my
yet.
knowledge.
I do have an update on that. I have a colleague working on a presentation that he hopes to deliver to the SIG in probably a month's time. I know it's not going to be in July. And it is on the use of confidential computing in PCI DSS. So we're basically, the goal is to inform the SIG of sort of what the financial institution thinks about what control obligations of PCI DSS could be made easier or done differently with confidential computing. So look forward to that. But I think that would be a good first step to us, reaching out to PCI DSS because that person he's in the data management space here at JP Morgan, and so he's authoring this, and I will get a first look at the draft, and then he'll present it here.
I'll add that as a separate.
But I think it's a good stepping stone to that because once we have that information, it will be easier for us to formulate how we approach PCI DSS.
It's a good bullet to add because an important part of what the Triple C is doing is educating. And so the meetings, we also met with NIST. Didn't go anywhere, but we met with NIST.
When?
At least it was in the last year.
Oh.
It was the FHE group.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I remember that one.
Okay.
It was the wrong group for us to meet with, but
Yeah, and that reminds me, I sent an email out to somebody. There was an EBC in Azure with NIST and NSA, and I was supposed to get some contacts for people who attended. I wasn't able to attend. I haven't gotten back on that. I'll reach out to them again.
okay.
Wasn't Chris meeting with the NSA? Was
Yes.
that the one?
You're talking about Hush Mesh, or you're talking about something different?
Chris Ramming from VMware, formerly VMware.
Yeah, was that? I thought that was a DoD thing, not
Oh,
NSA.
it was DOD, not NSA in particular.
Yeah.
But DOD probably belongs on the list then,
Yeah.
right? We've reached out to them and had a meeting.
Yep. Okay. All right. I think this is pretty good. This last one here, just so you know, Olu was working on this document on mapping technological features and security requirements published by NIST. I think she was working on a document. She pulled some NIST SP, and I can't remember which one it was, and started to say, here's how CC features would map to those requirements. So I kind of like to get her to maybe finish that up. Dan sort of asked that I include this. So I'll do that, and we'll
We
go.
also had the ICO document we did for Paul.
I've got that kind of here.
Okay.
Good enough?
Good enough. Do you have any N's? Okay, you've got your second line. You've still got an N.
see. Oh,
Collaborate with security organizations and authoring.
say two.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll
Great.
turn this over to Ben Sternthal, and it will be noted in the TAC meeting minutes. And then at the end of the year, we'll explain how we've accomplished these key results.
Sounds good.
All right, let me stop sharing now if I can figure out how.
So now, are you putting the fact that we're developing governance patterns into the key results? Because I think those would be, by the end of the year, we should have them all finished.
Sal still here?
No, Sal dropped.
Sal had to drop, I think.
Got it. I was going to ask Sal about the vocabulary work. So maybe I'll do that.
Okay. All right, so let me share my screen again. So that's AVS governance. All right, put the link in there. So why don't you guys take a look, comment, and let's reconvene in like 10 minutes. I don't think maybe it will take even less. Okay, so good set of edits so far. Um, do you guys feel you need a little bit more time?
Well, here, the one thing I'll say, and you're the author here, Mark,
Yeah,
we've got a mix, and I just added this comment. We've got a mix of things that are CC specific and some things that are just really good general purpose CISSP type security requirements. Um,
yes,
in the solution section, you put the bit about the AVS administrator being untrusted. That should be front and center. So maybe if I, as we're going through kind of like with an editing mindset, maybe just
yeah,
move stuff around and put the CC stuff at the top of the list and make that more elaborate and the general purpose stuff down in the list and maybe have shorter descriptions.
right. Perhaps we can talk about ways of doing that. I don't have an objection to what you're saying. When you say that a AVS administrator is untrusted, that I cannot make that a must. I don't believe, because it is situation specific. Some organizations will trust the administrator of the AVS, others won't. Uh, this brings to attention the fact that uh, your administrator of the AVS is in the TCB of every workload. Administrator of the tenant is in the TCB of every workload because they control what policies are in effect. So um, it's certainly a consideration that needs to be highlighted because I don't, unless you're very experienced with confidential computing, this is not something that's going to jump out at you. But yeah, I also, yes, the mix here is clear, but it's also clear in the workload governance. And remember, with workload governance, we deprioritize things that have are just normal parts of software development lifecycle. So, for instance, code scanning or supply chain management is not new for confidential computing, so it's not really worth like that much of a call out there. Here, however, the entirety of AVS is new for software development lifecycle, right? Or because it's there is no attestation service unless there is confidential computing. So this is where I felt that all considerations related to AVS governance are worth highlighting.
I agree. I agree. Be careful when you say there is no attestation other than confidential computing because we do that goofy measured boot thing and they call that attestation. So I've been
Yeah,
that's
sure. Yeah, it's the TPM based stuff, which
yeah,
is,
you know a lot about that. So you're aware. I'm just saying every time I say attestation is specific to confidential computing, I get corrected.
okay.
It is a term of art that predates confidential computing, so
Yeah.
it gets used other places. I didn't know whether we should discuss it, but I think federation is really important in here. Today, there are multiple AVS systems that are coming into existence. MAA from Intel, IT or from Microsoft, ITA from Intel. NVIDIA's got their own verification systems. So if you want to use a GPU today, you're going to be calling two AVSs by definition. You've got to get your attestation done with the GPU and your attestation done with the CPU and put that into a federated system.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's where so right. So you may the statement may be necessary, but you should make a comment about that. That uh, you may encounter situations where you deal with more than one AVS for a given workload.
yep.
And in that case, the governance requirements apply to okay, so how about this?
There's the zero trust guys think of it in terms of reducing down to what's the limited scope of trust you can have for a single thing. And a federated system is just going to mean this one only does part of the job, this one does part of the job, and you need something else to put it together.
Okay, we're not gonna wordsmith necessarily right now, but here I added.
Yep.
And what was the other thing that you were saying? Sorry, I cannot type and process speech at the same time. Sorry, Steve.
With the other one was, you know, there's you want to limit the scope of what you have to trust at all times, to the smallest circle that you can, and it falls under the federated. So I don't know that it's a separate thought. I was just expanding upon it.
Hmm. Well, so there is is this, yeah, I guess it is federation. I never really thought of it as federation. Specifically if you're testing using a CPU and a GPU on different AVS and stuff. And
The thing that
normally I think,
put me on this train of thought in the first place is you've got a bunch of multi-tenant stuff down at the bottom.
yeah,
And um, uh, one of the things we do with our AVS is single tenant. We sell it to a customer. The customer can put it on-prem. The customer can put it in the cloud. The customer can put it wherever they want to put it.
right.
And then it also can connect to other AVSs. So if you're trying to manage something in MAA, for example, you can manage things locally with our AVS, and then you can go fetch secrets out of MAA and string them together however you need to string them together. So that's what put me onto this in the first place, was the whole single tenant, multi-tenant. And then I started thinking, yeah, there's a whole cascade of issues there that have to be dealt with.
Right. Okay. Well, it's certainly possible to incorporate. But feel free to suggest wording as well. You can just keep your suggestion mode on, so we can know what it is you. That's probably. I have an issue with this suggested edit, always required versus must be maintained. I would like to stick to must, may, should not. This is not a random capitalization.
So maybe must be required. I'm just trying to stick with the terminology so that the bullets all have similar.
Well, um, no, must be maintained, I think is fine. It's the consistency is, you may or may not have confidentiality. It depends. Like,
That's cool. All right, I got to drop. Thanks, folks.
Okay. Steve, do you want to continue for a few more minutes so we
Yeah, I can continue
get
for a
this
few
ready
moments.
for?
Yep. I also sent this on to the product manager of our AVS,
Uh-huh.
because we've got a similar document internally in terms of what are the requirements for the Anjuna policy manager. The signing and encryption keys I wanted to follow up on, and if there are signing and encryption keys, I absolutely agree with this, but which ones in particular were you thinking of?
Well, so signing keys would be for signing attestation results.
Yeah, so the attestation results get signed by the hardware and presented to the AVS. If you want to take
No. Attestation results, the AVS once AVS validates results.
right, if the AVS wants to pass them on to somebody else, the AVS can then sign them.
Correct. Those are the signing keys that I'm talking about here.
Yeah, so those aren't required. Those are necessary if you want to um, cascade the results somewhere else. Who signed it? Who authorized it?
This is something I actually want to discuss. So when we talk about workload identity, I'm at that point I start thinking about AVS, broadly speaking, as a certificate authority of some sort of credential authority. It doesn't have to be certificate. And when that happens, the AVS, again, broadly speaking, so there is the part of AVS that all it does is basically looks at the measurements applied to it in quotes and says, yeah, this is good, this is not good. But then if this broadly speaking AVS goes and starts issuing credentials bound to the attesting T, then you're talking about signing key. And it is in that broader context. Like I do believe that fast forward a couple of years, every AVS is a form of a certificate authority because of workload identity. And this is why I'm elevating signing keys here.
It's ultimately why we chose an open source key manager as the underpinnings of our AVS, because there's just a whole bunch of stuff that we wanted to inherit as opposed to have to rewrite. But the if I take a look at ITA, for example, all ITA is going to do is it's going to replace your attestation report with a token. And
What's ITA? Sorry.
ITA is Intel's Trust Authority. They renamed it again. It's Triton
okay.
or something. It's on its third name now. It was Project Amber, then it became ITA, then it became something else. My apologies to the Intel people watching this, that I should know the name off the top of my head. But it's going to use OPA to make a policy decision. Once you invoke that policy decision, it then returns a token to you. And that token is just a JWT token like any other at that point in time that you're then going to run around with. So I think you're envisioning a system that's even more robust than that with the signing keys.
Right, I do. So as I said, it's the AVS is sort of a combination HSM and CA. Well, mostly CA, like the keys that can import. But yeah, it needs if you steal the keys from the AVS, again, you just compromised all your confidential workloads.
Yeah, at some point you have to. That's why at the very top of this I put that this is required for remote attestation. You've got to have a central point of trust that you're establishing whenever you do remote attestation.
Yes.
And it's strongly in the circle of trust. Doesn't have to be there for all use cases, right? SGX, you can do local attestation.
Right.
And so we certainly have examples. So that's why I wanted to add remote attestation into the definitions of the AVS, because it comes into existence if and only if you choose to do remote attestation.
Right. Okay. Well, so what I propose we do is it sounds like you have someone you want to circle back with.
Yep.
We don't need to finish this edit right now. I mean, there's a bunch of suggestions. I can go through them later. But the goal would be that in 2 weeks' time, we get this to a point that we can take this to the attestation SIG.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you for writing it, because it's usually it's easier to critique than it is to create. And so when you put a document together, people will bleed on it like we just did.
That's fine. Yeah.
This was far more productive than us trying to create a document dynamically.
Right. Excellent. So again, so for the next meeting, we will finalize this. My other document, which is the workload identity zero trust architecture, That is
Yep.
going to the Zero Trust Working Group at CSA, so we're not going to discuss it here much. And we, there's still maybe a couple of comments in the workload governance pattern document. I already moved it into the approved patterns folder. So take a look there. I think there is still a comment or two to be resolved. So I just really want that done. And I guess I will see you in 2 weeks. So in 4 weeks, prepare for the PCI CSS presentation for my colleague. I'm actually not going to be here. The meeting after next, I'm on vacation. So
I may be as well. I'm off at first week of August.
oh no, that would be second week of August.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be like August 14th. Okay, wonderful. Thank you both, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.